Well, that was a back and forth game of tag that probably didn't need to happen. Let's talk about that and much more on this episode of Running with the Pack. Alright, so before we get into this video, I'd quickly like to thank our sponsor for this video, so we will get right to that. Do you have a NASCAR Heat 5 League which feels like it's missing something? If so, check out East Need 95 TV over on Twitch. Quality NASCAR Heat 5 Truck, Xfinity, and Cup Series broadcast starting at $15 a race. And here's a brief example of some of the commentary to expect from East Need 95 over on Twitch.
22 that are going to have the run. At 7, he's going to have nowhere to go. Now watch, they are setting themselves up here for this. Watch it. They're building the run. Here we go. Oh, the 47 going to throw the block. JD going up high. Oh, this is going to be a good finish.
Okay, so, man, I just got done watching the Gateway, what was it, the Gateway 300 or the Enjoy Illinois 300 or something like that, but yeah, so brand new track to the Cup schedule. Yeah, kind of the getting ready for the turning point for a lot of people's seasons. If you really want to be taken seriously as a playoff contender, I feel like if you didn't perform in the first half of the season, so if you weren't in like the top 10 in the points breakdown coming into this race, you really needed to make yourself known as a threat during this race. And honestly, I feel like a lot of drivers tried to do that. Of course, the points battle tightened up as well. We'll talk about that in a minute. But you had lots of guys trying to kind of establish themselves as threats for the championship. Starting with the race winner, the eventual race winner, Joey Logano, coming home with the victory after a very fun duel between himself and Kyle Busch over the final 2-lap overtime restart at Gateway tonight. The two of them were trading back and forth and really were the two best cars there in position late. Of course, there were a couple other drivers who were in contention, but realistically, it was those two. And it came down to really, at least from what I could tell, the fact that Kyle Busch did not get as good of a push on the final restart as the two Team Penske cars lined up on the inside lane, allowing Joey Logano to compete and ultimately, force a mistake out of Kyle Busch, which is not the most common thing in the world. So, yeah, Kyle Busch still comes home second, and just edging out his brother, Kurt Busch, in third. Ryan Blaney comes home fourth. Just another solid points day for one of the more consistent drivers who is still winless in terms of the points paying victories. Of course, he did win the All-Star race a couple weeks ago, but that win does not lock him into the playoffs. Eric Almirola, who came into this race on the outside looking in, ends up, I think it's 8 points in after a top 5 finish here at, he ended up, 8 points in after this result at Gateway. So, great top 5 finish. Believe he earned stage points in both stages. Yeah, he earned 6th and 5th in both stages, so he was running up top 5, top 6 all day long, pretty much. Really kind of showed himself as a contender, at least for the playoffs. And honestly, I was writing him off going in with my video last week. I was writing him off as a potential playoff threat because I really hadn't seen that kind of outright speed. And we hadn't seen the outright collapse that we saw late in this video, late in this race that we will talk about later in this video as we get down the list. MTJ, another solid points day for someone who has not won a race, but is really comfortable on points. Again, unless we start seeing a rash of new winners, which obviously the road course next week starts that kind of trend of, will we see a new winner? But for right now, Truex is pretty solid, and Truex is pretty solid at Sonoma, so the odds of him being the next winner is very likely. Eric Jones with another really solid points day for him. He's now like 29 points out after this Gateway race, so really solid finish. Christopher Bell just kind of putting in another solid performance at the flat tracks like we have come to expect from him at Richmond, Iowa, Iowa when it was on the Xfinity schedule, New Hampshire. Basically, anytime he visits these types of tracks, he has been flat out dominant. And he showed a few signs of that at Gateway. A new track to him for the most part. I mean, I think he may have run it once in trucks, but he does not have all that much experience at this type of track. So, good job for him. AJ Allmendinger had never even turned a lap at this track until lap 1 of the Cup race because he was off racing in Portland, Oregon for the Xfinity Series yesterday, so he didn't get to practice or qualify the car. And in fact, Ben Rhodes went and put that car in the wall in practice. So, yeah, it was not an ideal car to have, but he ultimately managed to find his way to the top 10 for the end of the race, and AJ Allmendinger comes home 10th. Now, in the middle there, I kind of skipped over a driver that we really need to talk about, which is Ross Chastain, and he really was kind of the hot button kind of point of interest for most everybody in this race. So early on in the race, I think it was actually in stage 1. Ross Chastain runs into the back of Denny Hamlin, pushing him wide and getting him into the wall, which ultimately Hamlin ended up pitting, losing a couple of laps, and came back out pretty off the pace, but apparently he was meeting minimum speed. But I think most everybody was pretty well aware that he was just waiting and waiting for a chance to try and take out Ross Chastain, or at least hamper his efforts, which he did by blocking him almost all the way into the grass in the on the back straightaway the first time he came by. Then the second time, Hamlin was getting lapped by the leaders, and Chastain came up behind him. He basically slammed the brakes and swerved right in front of Chastain, again holding him up. Then Chastain ended up in the middle of a 3-wide battle, everybody just trying to fight for every spot they could. Chase Elliott looks like he may have pinched Chastain down, maybe not knowing that they were 3 wide. Chastain also not trying to not squeeze the person beneath him, going up into Elliott, sent Elliott into the fence, and really got both drivers, Elliott and Hamlin, on the same page for the first time in a long time, where the two of them were committed to trying to make Chastain's day a little rough, which, in all fairness, in the post-race interview, Chastain took 100% responsibility for the wrecks and says that he has one coming. I just hope that at some point, and this is something I've said about a couple of other drivers, like some of the incidents that Ty Gibbs has been involved in. At some point, I'm hoping that I know that we're owed one, that turns into them making less of those intentional, or not intentional, but those mistakes that lead to the intentional retaliations, like what we saw with Gibbs at Martinsville when he got nudged by Sam Mayer, or like today with Chastain where he had guys swerving at him. Now, I think NASCAR really should take a look going forward at not allowing the drivers to self-police like this, at least not more than twice. I think after you've swerved at the guy twice, especially if you're well off the pace and getting lapped 2 to 3 times every like 10 minutes or so, I feel like at some point you gotta black flag him for swerving, especially when it's targeted at one driver. Now, Elliott, he only had really 1 or 2 moments where he really hit back at Chastain. and actually led to a 1-2 combo where he went and sideswiped Chastain, putting Chastain into the fence, and as Chastain was coming off the fence, Denny Hamlin went by and sideswiped him. So, but ultimately, Ross Chastain was able to bring his car home inside the top 10 in 8th place. So, neither of the other two drivers, Elliott or Hamlin, got a top 20. So, and Hamlin, I think, finished like 35th, 34th. Yeah. So, yeah, not a great day for Hamlin. Cindric, Larson, Bowman just kind of having status quo days, not really needing anything spectacular and really not doing a whole lot spectacular. Cindric's kind of on that list where he got a win so early in the season that really competing and being a regular contender hasn't been a major thing that he's had to worry about. But yeah, it's something that I feel like if you want to be taken seriously in the playoffs, especially by the general NASCAR fans, when it comes to like everybody talking about like, okay, who are the legitimate contenders for the title? I feel like you gotta start stepping it up, which obviously, Cindric being a road course ace, Sonoma, and Road America both coming up within the next month or so, play to their strengths. Justin Haley having a solid top 15 day, just trying to start getting that the second Kaulig Racing entry kind of on pace, because hard to remember that who is technically the first and second entry, because you would think that their first entry was the 16 car because that's their number that they've been running, but it's obviously the rotational car with many different drivers. So yeah, Haley's been improving consistently over the course of this season, but he's been mired by 2 penalties for wheels coming off, losing his crew chief at 2 separate times for 4 weeks. Certainly hasn't helped him. Austin Dillon, after that big wreck at the end of the 600 last week, ultimately comes home 15th. Then a couple other shout-outs I want to give is Zane Smith in his Cup Series debut, subbing in for the COVID-plagued Chris Buescher, because Chris Buescher tested positive for COVID late in the week, about Thursday, Friday-ish. And Zane Smith from the Truck Series was tapped to fill in that car, and ultimately he did pretty much what was expected of him. Ran quietly in and around the top 20, top 15-ish most of the race, and comes home 17th. And ahead of his team owner and teammate, Brad Keselowski. And one more shout out I really wanted to give out before we go to talk about this race more as a whole is Michael McDowell. Late in stage 2, he pulled a strategy where he stayed out on tires and ultimately was able to go very far on those old tires, eventually leading a total of 34 laps late in the stage before deciding that under one of the late yellows in the stage that he wanted to pit before the final stage began, forfeiting the lead in all of his track position basically to guys like Kurt Busch, who ended up winning that second stage. But I just wanted to remind everybody that Michael McDowell, and now, first off, massive bias here. I'm a big Michael McDowell fan, have been for years, and the fact that he led laps and looked like a genuine contender. I mean, at one point they showed his laps versus Kyle Busch on 30-lap newer tires, and Michael McDowell was on pace, if not faster than Kyle Busch at times on 30-lap older tires. Some could attribute that to the fact that the track wasn't really wearing tires, and sure, that could be a part of it. But, I mean, everybody knows that front row motorsports equipment, probably not as good as Joe Gibbs Racing equipment. Just wanted to give a big shout out to my boy Michael McDowell there with that finish. He also was on pace for a top 10 at the end of the day before a couple poorly timed wrecks ended up stalling out his momentum and getting him trapped back in the back half of the top 15. And ultimately, he got shuffled back to outside the top 15, relegated to 18th. But yeah, 18th is not indicative of the type of day he had. He was inside the top 10 most of the day, led, again, more laps than he had in any full season combined, including his amazing year last year. And he's now up to 21st place in points. So, sorry. Michael McDowell rant over. Michael McDowell did a great job. So, yeah, that's most of the shout-outs I wanted to give. And then just kind of one other shout-out I wanted to give was to really Gateway itself for being a fairly, for the track allowing a lot of drivers to be mixing it up in the middle of the pack. At times we saw people shifting down to from 5th to 3rd gear, so dropping 2 gears, entering the corner at an oval track. I mean, we have not seen that kind of play out, pretty much ever at in a NASCAR Cup race. Now, some of that was attributed to the lack of passing at Martinsville, but Gateway was a little bit wider, allowing for more passing to happen, and especially that last couple of laps where we saw the back and forth happen. But also with the wide track, it attributed to 1, 2, 3 drivers, I think, total being knocked out of the race with accidents. Many other drivers were involved in accidents. Stenhouse twice, Cole Custer. And then kind of one other note I wanted to make it when looking at the running order is that Kevin Harvick wrecked out of this race really late from what was going to be a solid borderline top 10, top 15 day. Ended up crashing out and is currently sitting 2 points outside the cut line. So, yeah, talk about a bad day for Kevin Harvick. A bad time to have a bad day going into that stretch where you start needing to be taking yourself seriously to be a true playoff contender. But yeah, all in all, this race, first off, I will say it was incredibly quick. I mean, we were going into overtime as we hit the 3-hour mark. I mean, you can't really ask for much better pacing out of a 300-mile NASCAR Cup race. It didn't feel overly short. It didn't feel overly long. I don't necessarily want every race shortened down to that length, but some of these short tracks like Bristol, Martinsville, that run 250 miles with 500 laps are decently paced. New Hampshire, Phoenix running about 300 miles each. It honestly just feels like a very good pace, and the next gen car allowing the drivers to make that kind of time. Especially for a non-crown jewel race, this was a great length for it. So, yeah, all in all, the length of the race was near perfect. I wish there had been a little bit more passing near the front, but ultimately, I think the drama of the whole Elliott, Ross, and Hamlin drama in the middle of the field really helped kind of make up for it in the end. So, yeah, in closing, definitely glad that they added Gateway to the NASCAR Cup Series. St. Louis is a big sports town, and instead of the only solution to trying to get into these sports towns like Chicago being street course options, I like the fact that we're looking at a short track right near St. Louis as an option. So, yeah, we got a great race at a great venue, and I'm looking forward to seeing it for many years to come on the Cup schedule. Might even have to go and buy a ticket to the race one of these days, though it is a decent travel, but we'll see. Maybe I'll get out to a Gateway Cup race at some point. But again, looking forward to the schedule. We're kind of coming into this next month and a half or so where you have a lot of variety coming to the schedule. We have Sonoma, which is a road course. So you have your road course ringers, Michael McDowell being one of those, Cindric being another one, MTJ, Kyle Busch being some of your favorites looking ahead. Then you have Nashville, which we've only seen once, and let's be honest, so far I'm not sure how much from last year to this year we can compare it at Nashville. Then we go to Road America in for July 4th weekend. Once again, I think that Road America is a great choice for a 4th of July spectacle race if you're not going to keep it, if Daytona is going to stay as the regular season finale. And again, that's another road course, so another chance for guys like Cindric, MTJ to try and lock themselves in, Michael McDowell to try and recover some points. Then we have our what is it? Our 4th super speedway race at the Atlanta Motor Speedway for the year. So we had the Daytona 500, Talladega, the Spring Atlanta race, and yeah, that would be our 4th super speedway race. So a lot of variety coming up on the schedule. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you guys are looking forward to sticking right here on the channel. But until next time, this has been Ryan Dyer with Running with the Pack, and I will be seeing you guys in the next video, live stream, whatever you guys decide to do with the rest of your day. Have a great day, everybody, and goodbye!